Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Today we are looking at Amprius Technologies.
As usual, before we start, subscribe, like, and comment to this video to support the show.
And honestly, you are going to want to stick around for this one. We aren't just talking about, another battery company here. We're looking at what is essentially a generational shift in how we store energy. Amprius is executing on silicon anode technology.
Okay, let's pause right there. I have to stop you before we get too deep into the hype cycle. Generational shift. It's a heavy phrase. I feel like every other week we see a press release about a battery breakthrough that's going to change the world, and then, 3 years later, we're still using the same old lithium-ion bricks. Why is this one actually different? What is the so what here?
That is a fair skepticism, and usually I'd agree with you. The battery industry is notorious for vaporware, but it comes down to two specific things: physics and target market.
Okay.
We are talking about density. Most batteries you use today in your phone, your laptop, most EVs, they use graphite anodes.
Right. Standard stuff. That's the baseline.
Exactly. Amprius uses silicon. And without getting too bogged down in the chemistry, silicon can theoretically hold about 10 times more lithium ions than graphite. That switch allows for just a significantly higher energy density. But here is the real differentiator, and this is crucial. They aren't trying to jam these into cheap consumer electronics.
Right.
They're targeting high-margin sectors: aerospace, drones, and the future of military defense.
So high performance, high price tag. They aren't trying to put this in a TV remote. They're putting it in a jet.
Precisely. Think about it. If you are building a drone for a military surveillance mission or an electric VTOL aircraft, do you care if the battery costs an extra 50%?
Not really, no.
You care about how long you can stay in the air and how much payload you can carry. That is where silicon wins.
Okay, so they are playing the premium game. That makes sense strategically.
Yeah.
But let's get into the fundamentals. Because great tech doesn't always make a great business. We've seen plenty of science projects go to zero because they couldn't figure out the business part. You said they're executing. What does that look like on paper?
It looks like they are finally moving from the lab to the factory floor. They recently reported their quarterly earnings, and they came in with better than expected revenue and earnings per share.
Beating expectations is good, but let's be real. For a growth company like this, expectations are often set pretty low. Was it a significant beat?
It was solid, but the beat is so crucial because it changes the narrative. It moves the conversation from theoretical science project to operational business.
Okay.
They're proving they can manufacture these things and get paid for them. They aren't just burning cash, they're generating revenue.
Let's double-click on that utility you mentioned. Silicon versus graphite. Is the difference really that stark in the real world? Or is this like a marginal upgrade?
No. It is substantial. We are talking about longer range, faster charging, but the killer app is payload. If you can make the battery lighter but keep the same energy, a drone can carry better sensors, more cameras, more cargo.
And in a military context, that payload could be, well, let's just say mission-critical hardware. Every single ounce matters when you're flying.
Exactly. Weight is the enemy of flight. If you solve for weight, you win the contract.
So that's the key market then, aviation and unmanned systems.
Correct. In these sectors, performance commands a premium. They aren't fighting a race to the bottom on price like we're seeing in the EV space.
Which brings us to financial health, because building this stuff is expensive. I looked at the balance sheet, and this is usually where I get nervous with these small cap growth stocks. They just burn cash.
Yeah.
But something interesting happened. They secured $97.5 million.
That was through an at-the-market equity offering.
Right, an ATM. Now, for our listeners, that basically means they sold new shares into the market to raise cash. Usually investors hate that because it dilutes them,
It does cause dilution, yes. But in this specific case, you have to look at what it bought them. Context is everything here.
It bought them survival.
It bought them runway. That injection brings their current cash reserves up to about $91.9 million.
Okay.
And when you look at their burn rate, my take is that this buys them a solid 12 to 18 months.
Oh, that's a huge relief, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? Without that cash, the narrative becomes bankruptcy risk.
It is massive. It removes that immediate risk. It means they don't have a gun to their head. They can focus on scaling up manufacturing without looking for cash every single quarter. It stabilizes the ship.
Okay, so they have cash.
Oh.
But money doesn't guarantee success. We need to talk competition. Why haven't the giants, Tesla, Panasonic, CATL, just crushed them?
Because silicon is incredibly temperamental. It swells, it cracks. When you charge it, silicon expands significantly, like 300%. That destroys the battery.
So,
Yeah, and it is incredibly difficult to do at scale without the battery just degrading after a few cycles.
so the big guys can make one, but they can't make a million that actually last.
Basically. Amprius has a moat built on proprietary IP and manufacturing know-how that solves these expansion issues. The big competitors have struggled to commercialize this specific tech at this scale.
They crack the code on durability.
They have meaningful solutions for it, yeah. They have two main platforms, Secor and Cymax. And these aren't just drawings, they are already integrated into high-reliability projects.
Like what? Who is actually trusting this tech?
Well, we are talking about the Nokia drone networks and the prismatic FESA 35.
The FESA 35, that's that solar-powered high-altitude thing, right? The one meant to stay up for months?
That's the one. These are serious industrial applications, not toys. If your battery fails at 60,000 feet, you have a very, very expensive problem.
I had another layer to that moat, actually.
Yeah.
Something people often overlook. Defensibility through regulation.
Go on.
Well, when you are dealing with military and aerospace, you have certifications like DO-254 and mil-spec.
Right, the regulatory hurdles.
And those aren't just rubber stamps. They are massive, painful, expensive hurdles. But once you get your battery certified for a military drone, you are essentially locked in. The military doesn't just switch vendors to save a few pennies. It creates a very sticky customer base.
That is a great point. It acts as a high barrier to entry for anyone trying to chase them down. You can't just disrupt a military supply chain overnight.
Okay, so that's the fundamental landscape. Good tech, sticky customers, cash in the bank. But we need to see if the market actually cares. Let's pivot to the charts.
Let's look at the price action. So recently, the stock has been trading around that $11 level, but the momentum is the real story here. I mean, this stock is up 212% over the past 12 months.
212%. That is a massive run. Does that worry you? Does it feel overextended?
It's certainly heated, but you have to look at the behavior. Just recently, on January 16th, we saw an intraday move of 8.4%.
And what caught my eye on that move wasn't just the price, it was the volume. It was 43% above average.
Volume confirms price.
Exactly. When you see a price pop with that kind of volume, it's usually a signal that it's breaking out above some psychological resistance. It tells you there is real conviction behind the move.
It confirms the move is real.
But I want to dig into who is buying. Because retail traders can push a stock around a bit, but we can't sustain a multi-month trend. We are seeing what I call cluster buying. Buy funds.
Institutional money.
Big money. Stevens Investment Management Group bought over 1 million shares. That is an $11 million position. Then you have Thames Capital picking up over 500,000 shares.
Which is roughly another $5.5 million.
Right. And when you see multiple funds stepping in at these levels after the stock has already run up, it tells you something. Institutional accumulation usually precedes a sustained move. They're betting on the fundamental thesis you just laid out.
They see the blue sky potential. They're positioning for the next leg up.
Precisely. Yeah. Now, moving from the hard data to the softer side, let's shift to market perception. What is the sentiment out there?
It's surprisingly bullish given all the volatility.
I pulled the quantitative scoring from the Alpha Vantage newsfeed. It's interesting. The weighted sentiment is net positive. 3 out of the 5 recent headlines are bullish.
That tracks. What were the specific drivers in that data?
Well, the CES 2026 Innovation Award scored very high, very bullish at 0.891. The general market strength is helping, and even the valuation models are flashing bullish signals.
It's not just the algorithms, though. There are real catalysts. That CES award is third-party validation.
Is it, though? Or is it just a marketing sticker?
In this industry, it matters. It proves the tech isn't just hype, it's been vetted. It's a signal to OEMs. Then you have the new CEO, Tom Stipien.
A new leader. That can bring a fresh operational focus.
Exactly. And analysts are noticing firms like Northland, Cantor Fitzgerald, B. Riley, they're all raising their targets. The average target right now is $14.57. So that implies, what, 32% upside?
So let me get this straight. Everyone loves it. The funds are buying, analysts are upgrading, news is good, tech is winning awards.
Yeah.
But here is where it gets really interesting. And honestly, really confusing.
The divergence.
A massive divergence. It's like a tug of war. Because while the institutions are backing up the truck to buy, the insiders are selling.
And that is the perfect segue. We have to address the bear case. Let's really dig into the whisks.
Let's do it. I dropped the hammer on this insider data, and it is not small. The CEO, Kang Sun, sold over 950,000 shares on January 16th alone.
That is a lot of stock.
In total, since November 2025, he has sold over $27 million worth of stock. He's reduced his holdings by roughly 40%.
Wow, that's a significant chunk.
From a skeptic's point of view, that is a flashing red light. I mean, it's a siren. Does the CEO know something we don't? Why sell into the rally if you think it's going to the moon? If I thought my company was about to revolutionize energy, I'd be hoarding shares, not dumping them.
I hear you, and it is a valid concern. It certainly looks bad on the surface, but let's add some context before we panic.
Okay.
Even after selling, Sun still owns over 1.4 million shares. That is worth about $15 million.
So he still has skin in the game.
Yeah.
But he took $27 million off the table.
Significant skin. Look, this looks more like portfolio rebalancing to me than a full exit.
Yeah.
When a stock runs up over 200% in a year, it's rational for an executive to take some chips off the table. It doesn't necessarily mean he thinks the company is doomed.
Fair point. Executives have bills too, I guess, massive bills. But let's talk about the other elephant in the room, profitability.
Or the lack thereof.
Exactly. The company is unprofitable, negative net margins. And the valuation is trading at a price to sales of around 27. That is high.
It is priced for perfection.
Compared to the industry average, it's in the stratosphere. Most auto parts suppliers trade at single-digit multiples. If they miss an earnings beat or there's a delay, that stock price could get punished severely.
That is true. But you have to look at the sector mix. You can't value them like a car parts supplier. They are moving into aerospace and defense. Those sectors carry 40 to 50% margins. As they ramp up volume in those products, the unit economics are going to look very, very different. The recent earnings beat suggests they are already turning that corner.
So the argument is that the high margins will fix the valuation as they scale. You're paying 27x sales now because you expect those sales to be incredibly profitable later on.
Precisely. You are paying for the growth curve, not the current snapshot.
All right, we have weighed the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's time to move to the final score. What is the verdict here?
Putting it all together, the tech moat, the capital raise stabilizing things versus the insider selling, I'm giving this a bullish score of 7.5 out of 10.
7.5. That is solid. Walk us through the elevator pitch for that score.
Amprius is sitting right at the intersection of three massive growth markets: unmanned systems, EVs, and aerospace. The $97 million raise removes the bankruptcy risk. The CES award validates the tech. The earnings beat validates that they can execute. For me, the institutional buying outweighs the insider selling.
And the valuation.
If you run a discounted cash flow analysis, looking at those future cash flows, it suggests the stock is significantly undervalued. We're talking about an intrinsic value closer to $39.
$39. That's a bold number.
It's a long-term number, and it assumes they capture a significant chunk of that drone market.
Okay, so if someone listening wants to play this, how do we structure the trade? We need a strategy.
We need a plan.
Here is the setup I'm seeing. First, time frame. This is not a day trade. This is a 12 to 24-month hold. You have to give the thesis time to work.
Agreed. Volatility will shake you out if you look at it every day.
For entry, you don't chase the spikes. I would not be buying at $11 or $12. I'd look to accumulate on dips. Anything below $10.50.
And for the momentum traders?
If you want to play the swing, you watch for a breakout above $12. The catalyst there would likely be Q4 earnings. If it breaks 12, it could run.
And targets.
The consensus on Wall Street is $14.57. That's your first exit. But if the bull case plays out, we could see $17.17.
That is attractive upside.
But you manage risk. If the story breaks, or if it drops 15 to 20% below your entry, you cut it. Use stop losses. Do not marry the stock.
Wise words.
Before we wrap up, what is the one thing they should be watching in the next few months? What's the next domino to fall?
Keep a very close eye on the updates regarding the manufacturing ramp in China. That is coming up in Q1 2026. That is the key to the volume question. If they can scale there successfully, that revenue inflection is going to be massive. If they hit snags, the stock will suffer.
That's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. We'll see you in the next one.